So this is the photo shoot room in the East Building of Regis. And in this room, you can shoot three-dimensional work and you can also shoot two-dimensional work. And if your painting or your two-dimensional work has a glossy surface, we also have a setup for that too, so you don't get glare on it. But basically when you walk in, this is the three-dimensional area. This big light turns on and you put your work right here, and then you put the tripod here and shoot it from there. And I'll explain this light and stuff more a little bit later. And then you also have these two lights here. And these are what you're going to use in this area for either hanging work on the wall or pulling down this gray backdrop and shooting work on the easel, which is in the corner right there. Okay, so these are your two lights that you're going to use to shoot two-dimensional work. They should either be in this corner, otherwise they'll already be set up where somebody else has used them. You can see that there's markings on the floor in the positions where they should go, so either they should be at these top two or they should be one on each side here. And these are on wheels and they're pretty sturdy, so you should be able to just pull them across the room no problem. And there's also an extension cord if you need it. So if you come and look at the back of these lights, you're going to want to turn it on to the side that says adapter because we do have it hooked up. You can see there's no batteries in here, so you're not going to choose that one. So you can turn it on and you can adjust the brightness here with the dimmer and also the temperature of the light. Okay, so if I'm shooting this canvas here and I want it hanging on the wall in the photo, there's two nails here that you can use to hang it on the wall. Nowhere else in this studio should you pound a nail into the wall. Obviously this is pretty beat up around it, but in your final image you should crop the photo so that you don't see what's around it. So this is one kind of quick way to get your work hung up. Keep in mind, like for this canvas, the nail is out far enough where it's actually, you can see it through the canvas. So I can either move it out from the wall a little bit like that. Otherwise, I can use the backdrop and the easel, so I'll show you how to do that. So because my canvas doesn't make the most sense hanging on the wall because of that nail, I'm going to use this easel instead. And this should always be in the room. And it's always set up exactly how you need it to be, so the only thing you would ever need to do is potentially move this down depending on the size of your work, but the angle of it is such that it's actually perfectly straight up, so don't mess around with that. So I've just put this right on this backdrop here. The backdrop is made of paper, so if you step on it, it's going to get dirty. But obviously you need to do what you need to do in here, so if you need to walk on the backdrop, that's fine. It gets replaced every so often, so I'm going to put my canvas on here. So now what I need to do is get my camera and set it up with my tripod. This tripod stays in the room, it's always in here, so you don't need to check out a tripod at the crib. And make sure that you don't take this with you. It is labeled photo shoot room, so okay, so this is the top of the tripod, and a lot of people will try to screw the camera on to the top of the tripod and it's just kind of clunky. So to release this part, you just pull on this lever and this part will come down. And this part should come off for you. It might be kind of hard to see what's happening here, but mess around with these two levers and it'll come off for you. So then you're gonna use this to attach it to the back, the bottom of your camera, and that'll make it easier to screw on. And then I'm gonna put this back on the tripod, and again, using these two levers, I'm going to slide it in there. And then it should be good to go. Now obviously I can move the tripod like this, but there's 3 levers here on the tripod that allow me to move it in various ways. So you can see what these 2 do. And then there's also a 3rd one here that allows you to move it like this. So with a tripod, you always want one leg right under the kind of lens of the camera just for stability. So I'm going to make sure that that's lined up. And then tighten these up. There is a level on the top. If you come in here, you can see there's a level in here. You can see that the bubble is moving around here, and I need to get the bubble in the center in order to make sure that the camera is completely flat. So it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to tighten both of these at the same time. So now I know that the camera is straight, and we also know that the easel is straight too. So when I'm pointing the camera at the easel, we should have a pretty level image. So when I tell the crib worker that I'm coming in here to photograph work, they will probably give you this specific red camera. And there's instructions for how to set everything up with this camera right on the wall in the room. So you can reference that, but I just got the camera from the crib and all the settings are correct. So I would go through and double check everything with the sheet on the wall. But I think that this camera mainly only gets used in this room, so there's a good chance that things will be set up correctly. But just know that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to this, so you might have one painting that has a more matte surface and one that's a lot shinier, or a different texture of paper that you're finding is reacting to the lights differently. So use these tape lines as a guide, but know that sometimes you're just gonna have to experiment to see what works best. So we're on the phone now. This is a good lesson because you can also take photos of your work with your phone, and we're gonna get to that later. But right now we're gonna go to the 3D setup, and we're gonna photograph something 3D in there so I can show you how this light works and how the setup works over there. So this is the 3D light. It's a little bit intimidating looking, and you do need to be careful with it because the last thing that you want is for this to become unbalanced and to drop on your magical ceramic pot that you just made. So this light needs to be treated with love and respect, just like all the rest of them. This is a big weight down here, and obviously this light is way too low right now, so I'm going to raise it up. This lever here, you can pull back towards you and it will loosen up the light so you can see that it's moving up and down. So I just want to give my work a little bit more space, so I feel pretty good about it here. Okay, so I'm going to turn this light on. You need to plug it in over here, and then it turns on with a switch on the floor. So I plugged it in. Here's the switch for the light to turn on, and on the floor here there's a dimmer that you can use. So just like the other lights, you can control how bright it is. And again, a good rule of thumb is to have this in the middle, but if you find that that's not working for you, then you have options there. So I have an empty coffee cup here. I'm going to use this as my three-dimensional object. Alright, so obviously I'm going to need to adjust my tripod again because I'm shooting something that's much lower to the ground. So this is with the reflectors, and that's without. So you can see actually what a massive difference that makes. Okay, so when I'm done with my camera, I want to use these same 2 levers here to make sure that I'm taking it off. And a lot of people have returned the camera with this on it. That's a no-no because other people need this, and there's other cameras that are going to be used here. So make sure that you take it off. One last thing about this camera is when you do check it out from the crib, there will be a memory card inside of it. So it is in your best interest to bring your computer so that after you shoot, you can load the images right away, and so you can just return this camera with the memory card in it, and you don't have to keep the camera for like 4 or 5 days. Okay, so you can also check out these phone tripod holders at the crib. If you would rather photograph with your phone, we're at the point now where our phones can do a great job, and it's sometimes easier. So you still need to use a tripod. So you could see that this has the same base as the tripod situation that we have in here. So I've removed the base that's naturally in this tripod, and I'm going to put this phone tripod right in. So this is how it should look, and then I'm going to grab my phone and place it in here. One thing I would not recommend at all when you're shooting with your phone is using the zoom function. So I would need to adjust this scene so that I'm happy with how large the cup is, because I'm not going to use my zoom. But with an iPhone, if you press the screen, there's a little box with a sun, and you can hit the screen, the box will come up, and you can kind of control the exposure of the image that way. So that's a good tip for you. But as we know, our phones are pretty darn good at making the right exposure. So obviously just tap the screen to make sure that the correct thing is in focus, and then shoot. Okay, so I'm all done shooting. I've shot my paintings and I shot my very lifelike sculpture of a caribou cup here. And now I need to put the room back how I found it, so I'm going to do that.